In the first scene of the anime, some students are casually chatting, commenting on a couple of friends from the school they attend. Suddenly, a significant figure from the school walks through the crowd, and her name is Inukami Suzune, the student council president. Behind her, we see Ryusen Kasuki, the vice president. Strutting through the hallways like the ultimate authorities, the two students capture everyone's attention while promising to change the entire school regulations through well-elaborated arguments. However, behind these people who seem born to grab the world's attention are the ordinary students with nothing special to offer the world. One of them is Yusato Ken, a plain and common high school student. Amidst a monotonous life, perhaps the most exciting thing lately has been watching a bird's nest grow under this cold rain. But the truth is, Yusato is not happy with this mediocre existence. In fact, he wanted an extraordinary life, full of remarkable feats and fantastic challenges. Since that's not the reality, Yusato settles for going home and watching any TV show while stuffing his face with mayonnaise-coated Doritos. Speaking of which, it's time to leave school. When the guy goes to get his umbrella, it's no longer there. Someone probably took it. Still, there's one lying around nearby, but Yusato isn't the type to steal one to leave the true owner soaked in a storm. At least not everyone's out to harm others. Inukami and Kazuki, thinking of the student council's reputation, don't want one of the students to go home all wet. So the vice president lends his spare umbrella to the guy. Accepting the help, Yusato thinks that maybe this guy is alright after all. Just because he attracts a lot of attention doesn't necessarily mean he's arrogant. Moreover, even though the two have never spoken before, he knows Yusato's name and even asks if he prefers to be called by his first name or family name, Ken. The protagonist kindly chooses Yusato, and young Suzune approves the idea, leaving the boy blushing with her charm. Finally, the two most popular students in the school invite him to go home together, making the protagonist think that everyone will be jealous when they find out. So the invitation is accepted, and in the middle of the walk, Yusato admits he thought Kazuki was a bit arrogant because he only talked to the girls in the class, practically. Feeling slightly uneasy, the vice president responds that he talks more with them because they make an effort to interact. To Inukami, in other words, it seems no man cares to talk to him. As for the president, according to Yusato, he thought she was even more unapproachable. But the girl doesn't seem to understand why. So Kazuki speaks up to praise how brilliant she is in all subjects as well as incredible in any sport she plays. As if that's not enough, she's also beautiful inside and out. In other words, perfection in person. But Inukami doesn't like being treated that way and asks her friend to ease off the pressure. And right after that, Yusato takes the opportunity to ask if the two lovebirds are together, but both are clear in saying there's nothing between them and they only walk side by side because they are always dealing with council matters. Yusato feels a bit embarrassed for getting into this matter, but Inukami approves of the colleague's attitude because at least he didn't talk about them behind their backs. At that moment, the girl felt secure enough to return another question and wants to know what Yusato plans to do after finishing high school. The guy has no idea, but to his surprise, neither of the two prodigies knew either. Inukami can achieve any goal she sets for herself, but that doesn't mean she's sure about which path to follow for the rest of her life. Entering into this subject, Yusato immediately realizes that this is what competent people worry about, unlike him. At least even though they seem so different, Yusato knows well what that feeling of not belonging to the world means. And when the girl reveals this pain, the protagonist discovers that not everything is perfect in the lives of those two. Suddenly, the group hears the sounds of a bell, ringing louder and louder, leaving everyone confused except Yusato, who couldn't hear any noise. Until, inexplicably, a magical circle surrounds the three and seems to absorb their bodies towards another dimension. Startled, the two guys exchange glances and ask what's happening, but Inukami seems excited about the situation, eager to be taken to a place where magical things happen, unlike this gray and normal world where they lived every day of their lives. It is when they wake up in an unknown realm, surrounded by medieval warriors and a king dressed appropriately. Again, the guys remain perplexed by all of this, but Inukami can't hide her happiness at being in such an incredible place. Intimidated, Kazuki asks who those people are and what they are doing there, but soon a guard puts the boy in his place for getting agitated in the presence of His Majesty King Lloyd. However, the sovereign himself doesn't seem irritated by the young man's boldness, but calmly asks the three students to listen attentively. He is Lloyd Volgast Ullinger, King of Ullinger. He summoned those young people to be heroes of these lands because the demon king dared to invade this world with his army. Therefore, in the face of imminent chaos, the monarch summoned three beings with the potential to become legendary figures, capable even of facing the powerful demon lord. Lloyd summoned the chosen ones through a forbidden ritual known as the Great Hero's Invocation. And as the king spoke, Inukami became more and more excited with words like kingdom, ritual, demon, and forbidden. On the other hand, Kazuki is not enchanted with the speech and rants against Alinger's big shot because he doesn't think it's fair for them to be taken away from their families without consent. However, the king can do nothing, as this ritual only allows the chosen ones to be summoned, but is not designed to return everyone to their place of origin. Still, Kazuki seems like he's about to explode at any moment, but Yusato calms his companion in time. Suddenly, the king himself kneels in front of the three students and promises one day to find a way to take everyone home in the near future. And with everyone present kneeling before the young ones, the monarch humbly asks them to become the great heroes destined to save this great nation. And after this clemency, Inukami asks how Lloyd knows that the three of them were the great heroes, and in his place, a subordinate named Welsi informs that the magical circle of the great heroes invocation is designed to select only extremely talented individuals. The bells they heard moments before the invocation are the signal that they are great heroes. However, Yusato did not hear these bells, so it seems the poor boy stumbled onto the ship. The king's assistant seems to ignore this, and then she displays a crystal ball to measure everyone's magical abilities. While Inukami continues to be amazed by absolutely everything that happens in that place, Kazuki asks the protagonist if he is not outraged by all this abuse. Despite everything, Yusato is satisfied, happy to be treated on equal terms with the other two, even though he is not actually a great hero. As he knew he could use magic nonetheless, he feels honored to be able to do something important instead of staying in mediocrity. Surprisingly, the vice president of the student council praises the companion's attitude, but surely neither of them is as excited as Inukami. After all, the girl is acting as if she had eaten a mushroom from Wonderland. And as she was already in front of the crystal ball, adoring the artifact with incomparable passion, Welsi invites the girl to be the first to put her hand on the ball. Soon, the magical object reveals that Inukami Suzune has an affinity for thunder magic. In addition, it was identified that she has a lot of mana in her body. So the second one to take the test is Ryusen Kazuki, and the guy activates the light magic color. However, before the person in charge explains what that means, the council president interrupts and fantasizes that her vice will be able to shoot laser beams from his eyes and wield magical swords made of light. Upon hearing that nonsense, Yusato warns that the vice president didn't understand a thing she's saying, making the girl turn to him with a somewhat annoyed vibe and comment on how sharp the tongue of this cheeky young man is. But at the same time, she changes her attitude and admits she likes this blunt way of the protagonist. That said, the perfect image Yusato had of his crush goes completely down the drain. Anyway, Welsi explains that light magic is very rare and its primary function is to dispel evil, with its power being unmatched against demons. Finally, Yusato Ken gets ready to lay hands on the ball, and before rubbing his fingers on the magic artifact, he wonders if he really has any talent of that kind. And if he does, he commits to helping his new companions in the mission they were summoned to fulfill. With this courage, he reveals a beautiful green in the crystal ball, and despite this color bringing feelings of peace, harmony, and tranquility, Welsi seems to express the opposite of these emotions. Terrified, she grabs the guy by the arm and drags him back to the king. In front of the throne, she quickly explains that the test was successful with the two chosen ones, but when she was about to mention the third young man, the king interrupts with a joke, guessing that Yusato has an affinity for dark magic. At that moment, Welsi informs that he activated the green color in the crystal ball, and upon hearing this, the king frowns immediately and orders his subordinates to send Yusato away from the castle as quickly as possible. The guy is left baffled while everyone discusses what to do with him until the boy asks if there's anyone else with the same affinity. Before answering, the king starts to tremble, and nervously to the teeth, he reveals that there is one more person who awakened the green color. And at that moment, an imposing woman invades the throne room, knocking down the gate and asking the king where the chosen ones are. She stops in front of Yusato and asks if he is a great hero. The king tries to downplay the situation, saying that this kid is just an ordinary person they brought by mistake, but the woman seems to smell the green from afar. She introduces herself to Yusato as Rose, captain of the kingdom's rescue team. And even though the boy thinks this woman looks more like the type to take lives than to save them, he would never say that out loud. Next, Welsi tells that the great heroes are in the crystal ballroom, and when Rosie starts walking towards the other two, Lloyd is relieved and promises to take care of Yusato's situation later. In the meantime, he should stay lodged in one of the castle's rooms. However, before the captain of the rescue team leaves the room, Yusato reminds that the king hasn't revealed what kind of magic he possesses, that green one. Hearing this, Rosie stops immediately and decides to borrow the boy. But the king doesn't seem willing to allow that to happen and orders Welsi to prevent the kidnapping. So she covers Yusato with a bubble and isolates him at full speed through the window, trying to shake off Rose. However, she's faster and reaches her desired object, delivering such a heavy punch to the bubble that its remains are thrown several meters away. With that, Rose finally gets what she wants, and with Yusato in her hands, she announces to King Lloyd that she will turn this goof into a responsible user of healing magic. After the departure of the rescue captain, Welchia tells the other two that their colleague was taken beyond the castle city and is in the hands of the Olinga rescue team captain. The kidnapper's name is Rose, one of the rare users with an affinity for healing magic. Despite this woman's desire to make Yusato a subordinate of her team, Welchia doesn't think the young man will be skinned alive or anything like that. Listening to the story, Inukami doesn't think it sounds too bad, but Welchia adds that Rose's teaching methods are, let's say, exotic. Meanwhile, already in possession of the young recruit, the captain informs her newest apprentice of his talent and explains that his healing gift is the reason he's being recruited into the rescue corps. Therefore, this house is now where he'll live during training. Now it's time to meet his new partners. For this, she calls her subordinates, and they all seem alarmingly eccentric. One by one, they introduce themselves and welcome the newcomer. The first was Tong, the bald giant. Next, a blonde with a parrot-like mohawk named Mill. Shortly after, Alex introduces himself looking like a crazed pirate. Gomel, a guy with spiked hair, had a huge scar over his left eye. And finally, Gerd shows up, a bizarre dwarf who looks more like a goblin. They all approach Yusato as if they're about to offer him for a ritual, but Rose quickly calms her subordinates and explains to the newcomer that none of them are magic users, but are useful in other, not always conventional ways. Finally, she explains that there are 2 healing users on the team, but they usually work elsewhere. Therefore, the newcomer will learn the hard way to master this art to complete the team. Every fiber of Yusato's body warns him that getting involved with this woman is a bad idea, but as soon as he earnestly asks to be trained by someone else, Rose turns away and informs him that training starts tomorrow. Then she orders Tong, the bald giant, to share the room with a new team member. And as soon as she leaves, the rescue partners warn in advance that the protagonist's life is going to be a nightmare, and that maybe hell itself is not enough for what the kid will go through at the hands of that crazy woman. Thus, bedtime arrives, and Yusato wonders if he's doing the right thing but tries to stay positive. On the other hand, Rose is also lost in her thoughts, questioning what this healer from another world might be capable of. Next week, we'll have more of this anime as soon as the new episode is released, so go ahead and subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to hit the like button below to support this video. See you guys.